Do you consider Land Lakes your hometown?
I do not really. I mean,
Then why are you starting your story here?
Land O'Lakes is where I lived the longest. It's where the most formidable years of my life happened. This is for sure. Even if I don't like to call it my hometown, it's the closest thing I've got to a hometown. My relationship with Land O'Lakes was always a rocky one. I think I'm nervous. This is weird. But before I tell you about my time here and how it shaped me, let me tell you how I got to Lando and my involvement in the place I came to reluctantly call home. From the time I was conceived, my life has been a rather nomadic one. And to help me navigate that journey, I turned to an expert in the matter, my mother, Jill Kern. So how did my mom and I end up in Land O'Lakes?
That's a long journey.
My mother grew up in Lackawanna, New York, a small steel town just outside of Buffalo.
Yeah, Lackawanna was not that big. It's cold all the time. Whatever there was to do, people generally did because weren't a lot of options.
So there wasn't much keeping my mom in her hometown. That, paired with her adventurous spirit, led her to new places. She started by bartending in Cape Cod during summer breaks in college, until some coworkers pointed her to a more lucrative and exotic destination.
And they said that they used to live in St. Thomas. And if I was still looking to make money, when the season ended there, when leaf season came about, then, season was picking up down there and you didn't need a visa. It was an American territory. So I was like, that sounds cool. I have nothing else to do.
So with a mere $200 in her pocket, my mother left for the U.S. Virgin Islands and quickly found employment. Eventually, she ended up running the front desk at a hotel where my father, Lee Danielson, was the ferry captain. And to make a long story short...
And then we ended up dating, and then I ended up getting pregnant with you, and Hurricane Hugo came and took everything. So then your dad had a chance to join the Merchant Marines because he wanted to increase the tonnage on his captain's license. So I went back to Buffalo to have you because I didn't want to be in St. Thomas by myself after the hurricane things were a mess.
After I was born, my parents moved to Pompano Beach, Florida. There, a friend let them stay in his house as the young couple struggled to get on their feet. The same friend worked on a boat, which he was able to get my father a job on.
And he ended up working on the boat for a couple years. I think he was still working there when I had Cole. Your brother came along.
My parents ended up getting divorced, and my mom transferred to Naples for a job that could support her and her two toddlers. While working there, she met my future stepfather.
I was doing retail leasing there, and he was working in the company that was renovating the mall that I was doing some specialty leasing in. And we got married, and his job transferred him temporarily to Tampa.
Once my stepdad's job set him up in Tampa, we moved into our first subdivision, West Chase.
So it ended up being permanent. We moved up there, had Will.
After my stepdad's job committed him in the area long term, we relocated to the suburban paradise blossoming in Land O'Lakes.
And then once it was permanent, we ended up building the house in Land O'Lakes.
So that's how we got to Lando. But my family's involvement in the community began in West Chase. My mother always had leadership tendencies and ended up becoming a group leader in La Leche League, a member of the PTA, and ran my Girl Scout troop.
So that was probably my first foray into serious volunteering. Then, and then it just sort of transfers no matter what your kids are involved with.
Once we made our way to Lando, my mom made her way into politics and sports.
That's where I volunteered for Barack Obama and John Kerry, right? And John Kerry, yeah, as well. Yeah, that didn't go so well. Same thing with Pop Warner. Started out just because, it's a good thing, football and cheerleading. And, automatically I'm team mom, and arranging who brings snacks what day. And it went from, team mom to merchandising to vice president, no, to just president then.
As my mom became more involved in the community, so did her kids. My brother Cole and I cycled through a number of activities in our younger years. But by high school, I had found a few things to keep my attention. I cheered for 8 years and swam for nearly 2 years, as well as joining debate club and yearbook staff, the latter of which led to a co-editor position for my high school paper. I also worked as a food runner at the original Beef O'Brady's in Lando, the spot to be after any sporting event. But despite my extensive involvement in the community, or maybe because of it. I never quite felt that Land O'Lakes was my home, just merely where I lived. Even if by definition this is my hometown, it's never felt like home. I feel uncomfortable coming back here. I don't feel safe and warm. It's never been my scene, I'd say.